The mailbox creaked when I opened it, like it had something to say. Inside was a thick, cream-colored envelope with gold trim, the kind you see in wedding magazines, the kind people send when they want to make a statement. My name was written in cursive, no nickname, no warmth, just Madeline Rose Harper. I knew the handwriting before I even flipped it over. Emily, my sister. The sun was out, but the air around me turned still. I opened the envelope slowly. There it was, a formal invite to Emily's wedding. My stomach tightened. My eyes scanned the details. Date, venue, dress code, groom, Daniel. I froze. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and throat, and for a second I couldn't feel my own hands. Daniel, her fiancé, was my ex, not just any ex, the one who knew me better than I knew myself for 5 long years, the one I trusted when I had nothing but hope. My world narrowed into that single printed name, Daniel Whitaker. The edges of the invitation curled in my grip. I stared down at the paper, not really reading, not really breathing, just trying to make sense of what felt like betrayal wrapped in gold foil. I leaned back against the mailbox post. The neighborhood around me stayed quiet, too quiet. Kids laughed in the distance. Someone was mowing a lawn, but none of it reached me. All I could hear was the pounding in my ears. I met Daniel when I was 23. He held open a door for me at a bookstore, then made some dumb joke about my dog-eared copy of Pride and Prejudice. We got coffee. One coffee turned into dinners, road trips, Christmases. For 5 years, he was mine. My person. Until I found the texts. Subtle at first. Flirty banter with a coworker named Jenna, then a hotel receipt in his glove compartment. Emotional cheating, he called it. It didn't mean anything, he said. I remember those exact words. It meant everything to me. But I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just walked out and stayed quiet. My family barely reacted. No one asked why. No one said they were sorry. It was like they had expected it all along. And then Emily, during a family dinner not long after, leaned close and whispered, "Maybe Daniel was just too good for you." Like it was a joke, like my pain was punchline material. Now I knew better. It wasn't just betrayal. It was orchestration. Emily and I were born 2 years apart, but the gap felt like a lifetime. She was the golden child, the cheerleader, homecoming queen, daddy's girl, mom's pride. I was the responsible one, the invisible one. She took my dolls when we were kids, my clothes when we were teens, my privacy, my peace. And now, she'd taken Daniel. She used to blow out my birthday candles, not once, not twice, every damn year, just to be cute. Everyone laughed. "Let her have it, Maddie," they'd say. "Be the bigger person." Always the bigger person. Always the afterthought. But this wedding, this wasn't petty childhood rivalry. This was war. I drove to my parents' house the next day, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Their porch light still had the same crack from when I fell off my bike at 8. The wind chime above the doorway clinked as I knocked. Mom opened the door, apron still on, flour on her cheek. "Maddie, sweetheart," she said. "What a surprise!" "Can we talk?" Dad was watching some documentary in the living room. I stood between them, holding the invitation like a loaded gun. "You knew," I said. "You both knew." They exchanged glances. That was all the confirmation I needed. "Honey," Mom started too softly. "It's been years. Emily deserves happiness too." Dad chimed in without looking up. "Don't cause drama. Just show up and smile. It's one day. One day. One day to stand beside people who didn't care if I shattered quietly, as long as I smiled in public." "Did she ask your permission before sending this?" I asked. "She just wanted to include you," Mom replied, like that made it better. I walked out before I said something I couldn't take back. Back at my apartment, I paced the living room. The invitation sat on the coffee table like it was mocking me. My phone buzzed. Work emails, a spam message, nothing that mattered. Should I go? Should I let them have this? Part of me wanted to stay home, curl up, forget the world. But there was a different voice now, one I hadn't heard in a long time. The voice that came from the part of me they'd never managed to kill. The voice that remembered how I picked myself up after Daniel, after every dismissal from my family. "You're not going to let them win," I whispered to my reflection. My phone was in my hand before I could think twice. I didn't call Emily. I didn't call Mom. I didn't call Daniel. I called a luxury car service. I booked the stylist that celebrities use when they're trying to make a point without saying a word, rented a black Rolls-Royce Phantom for the weekend. Not because I needed to flash it in their faces, but because I wanted to feel like I wasn't walking into this war unarmed. That car would glide up to their perfect little venue like a silent bullet. The dresses I tried on looked nice, but none of them made me feel anchored. Until I slipped into a navy gown with a deep, open back. It wasn't loud. It didn't beg for attention. It was quiet power. I looked at myself in the mirror and said, under my breath, "Let's give them something to choke on." That night, for the first time in months, I didn't toss or turn. No dreams. No shadows. Just sleep. The next afternoon, as sunlight fell through my kitchen window, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to answer. It was Aunt Gwen. "Hey there, baby girl," she said. Her voice was huskier than I remembered. I hadn't heard from her since the fight with my parents 3 Christmases ago, when she called out Emily for faking a medical emergency just to skip hosting dinner. "I heard about the wedding," she said. I didn't speak, just waited. "They've been planning this, Mari, for months. Since last year, at least." I stayed still. My hand clenched tighter around the glass I was holding. "You think it's coincidence they sent you the invite so late?" she continued. "Daniel and Emily started seeing each other before your breakup." I froze. "I knew it," I said, finally. "They want you to show up broken. You walking through those doors, alone, sad. It's fuel for them." I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just let the silence thicken. "I don't think you should go," she whispered. "I haven't decided," I said, but I had. The next morning, my mother invited me to brunch. "Just the girls," she said. It was her, Emily, and our cousin Clara. We met at a trendy cafe downtown. White tablecloths, overpriced lattes, and a menu that made avocado toast sound like a luxury. Emily was glowing, of course. She wore white, which I thought was tacky even for her. The second I sat down, my mother leaned in and said, "You've lost so much weight. Stress?" I gave her a look and replied, "More like clarity." Emily laughed, like I was part of a joke she'd already finished telling. Then she showed off her ring. "Daniel designed it himself. He's always had such good taste." My stomach flipped. I looked her in the eye. "When did you two start dating?" Silence. Before anyone could answer, my mom chimed in. "Don't ruin the vibe, Mari. This day is about love." Love. They were erasing me in real time, rewriting history in broad daylight. I smiled. Of course, wouldn't want to ruin anything. Inside, I wanted to flip the table. That afternoon, I drove aimlessly, let the city pass by like a memory I was trying to outrun. But I found myself heading north, to the old apartment Daniel and I shared when we first moved in together. The complex had been repainted, new cars, new tenants. On the balcony of our old unit, a couple stood laughing, holding iced coffees, completely unaware of the ghosts that lived there. I pulled over and parked across the street, just sat there. I remembered the night he came home late, flowers in hand, and told me I was too emotional, that I should be more like Emily, calm, composed, effortless. That sentence cut deeper than any lie he ever told, and I took it, swallowed it, nodded like it made sense. Now I could see how wrong that girl was, the one I used to be. Back at home, I stepped into a small boutique that specialized in perfume. I asked for something nostalgic, something floral, but with weight. The kind of scent that walked into a room before I did. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of red wine, the air thick with jasmine and dusk. I pulled out a notepad and wrote a letter to myself. Why you're going. I listed every moment, Every dismissal, every lie, every time I was told to sit down and smile. Then I ended with, "You're not going as a victim. You're going as a witness. And maybe, as the storm." I folded it, slid it into the pocket of my clutch. That letter was my anchor. The next morning, I woke up and everything was still. No racing thoughts, no dread, just that dangerous kind of calm that only comes before something erupts. I'm cleaning out my closet, pulling old dresses and jackets, trying to find something that feels like me for Emily's rehearsal dinner. My fingers brush against a leather-bound journal, the one I thought I lost years ago. I flip it open, the pages brittle. The entry is dated a night 10 years back. I read about Daniel texting someone named E. I convince myself it was work. Emily worked at the same firm. Reading those words now feels like peeling off a mask. My handwriting is jagged. Tear stains blur lines. I whisper, "You wanted to believe it wasn't real." But the stain never lies. I remember a summer in Colorado. I was 16. Emily flirting with that boy next door. I'd liked him. She laughed and said, "If you can't keep him, he's fair game." I confronted her. My voice shook. Parents heard something, but said my drama was over nothing. They told me to calm down. That was the night I stopped being seen. Because from then, Daniel wasn't the only threat. Emily's entitlement was... Late evening, I sit across from Tasha at a downtown coffee shop. She's polished, distant. I pour out the journal entry. "How long did they hide it from me?" I ask. She hesitates, glancing out the window. "Over a year," she admits. "They promised they'd tell you but didn't want to upset anyone." Silence between us. She leans in. "They just thought you'd stay away. Shame, maybe." I realize the betrayal isn't just Daniel's. It's everyone who stayed quiet. Back home, I punch a pillow until my knuckles burn. Then I start writing. Every dismissal, every erased memory, everything they pretended didn't matter. I compose a message to Emily, but delete it. She doesn't deserve my cry. I line up perfume, journal, old Polaroids, artifacts of a life I never asked to be invisible in. I light a candle, watch the flame flicker. I whisper, "You taught me how to disappear. Now, watch me appear." I pull out a sleek clutch. The second Rolls-Royce is booked. Because showing up isn't enough anymore. I want to arrive. I lay out the dress with pins and memories, shoes polished, voice firm. I type my RSVP. "Looking forward to it. Warmly, Mari." I imagine Emily reading those words and feeling a cold sweep across her chest. That night, I sleep with the letter under my pillow. Not afraid. Angry, maybe, but certain. When morning comes, I won't be the shadow in their wedding photos. I'll be the woman who remembers. They asked me to dinner. Emily sent a text. "We need to smooth things over." My mother agreed to host at their house. My heart tightened. I hesitated. But questions needed answers. I told myself it's just a dinner, but I drove to their home feeling like I was stepping into a courtroom. Inside, the air smelled of lavender, Mom's candles, fresh flowers. Camille stood in the living room, wearing the ring. Daniel's ring. The one he gave me years ago on our anniversary. The light caught it on her finger. I saw it glinting like betrayal. Emily, smiling too wide, gestured toward Camille. Camille thought it would pair well with the dress. Polite. Dim. Poison. I tasted bitterness. Masked by beauty and good taste. This moment held something cold. Mom raised her glass. "I'm so proud of you, Emily," she said, voice soft but loud in my gut. "Your fiancé has done wonders for the family name." Emily beamed. Camille stood there, stiff. I forced myself to meet Mom's eyes. "That ring used to be mine," I said quietly, voice just loud enough. Emily's flush was immediate. "He gave it to both of us," she stammered, voice thin. "As a keepsake," Camille added, eyes darting. I saw the smiles freeze. Her acting. The facade cracked. When dinner ended, I slipped outside onto the porch. The night had settled hot, smells of distant rain mixed with the faint glow of street lamps. I dialed Nora. My voice was low, sharp. I told her about the ring, about how everyone acted like I didn't notice. She listened. "Mari, if you don't draw the line now, they'll write your story without asking your consent," she said. Her words hit me like glass. I thought of all the moments I swallowed truth for their convenience. Nora said she'd come tomorrow with the evidence I've collected. I hung up. In that moment, I knew I couldn't enter tomorrow unarmed. Back inside, I went up to my childhood room. The walls still held dust and memories. I pulled out my notebook. A list after list, every slight, the ring incident, the exclusion, the jokes made in front of me. I wrote noble names, quotes that once kept me sane. Maya Angelou said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." I wrote that. It felt righteous. I packed the ring, a folder of papers, the message from Nora into a slim clutch. I looked in the mirror. Not broken. Steeled. Later, alone in bed, I listened to traffic rumble outside, headlights cutting across blinds, my heart pounded but steady. I placed the clutch beside me, the dress laid out, shoes polished by the door. I whispered in the dark, "They wanted silence. I'll give them presence." I closed my eyes, aware of the storm I was choosing to invite. I woke before dawn. The hotel suite was quiet, curtains drawn, the faint hum of early traffic outside. I lay still long enough to feel the weight of what I'd done so far. Every decision, every detail, dress pieces, earrings, that clutch with documents. They weren't just accessories. They were quiet armor. I poured coffee on the balcony, steam rising. I rehearsed responses in my head, not shouting, just clear statements. I thought through what I would say when questioned, where to stand, when to speak. I told myself, you don't have to set the whole house on fire. Sometimes one flame is enough. I breathed deep and whispered to myself, let them burn on their own arrogance. I arrived at the garden estate 45 minutes early. The Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled through the gates. The valet paused. White florals draped trellises, soft fabrics tangled with light breeze. The air smelled like fresh blossoms and something forced, peace. Emily was there, in her crisp gown. Her smile faltered when I stepped onto the stone path. Daniel's eyes dropped. I straightened my back. Someone across the hedge whispered, "Who is she?" A hush I felt in my bones. No collapse, no tears, just presence. I stood tall. I didn't need their acceptance. I required only their attention, the discomfort of knowing I wasn't broken. Inside the bridal suite, I found Emily alone. She nearly dropped a champagne glass. I raised a hand, not in anger, but to stop her small smile. She stammered. I held quiet until she paused. "I'm not here to forgive or to fight. I'm here to speak." My voice steady. I slid a journal page across the vanity, also the ring. Her hand recoiled as I laid it down. And the photo from our early road trip, faded edges, laughter turned sour later. "This is the last time you'll rewrite me out of my story," I said, soft-spoken but sharp. Daniel blocked the doorway as I turned to leave. "Mari, can we talk?" he pleaded, reaching out. I stopped. Voice calm. "You lost that right the day you mistook my silence for consent." He tried to explain Emily, the confusion, the love. I listened. Then I handed him a letter I wrote long ago, one I never sent. It spoke of betrayal, dignity, of knowing you deserve better. "Read it after you're married," I told him. "At least let one thing in your life be real." I walked back to the reception hall. Guests glanced. Cameras lifted. Instead of retreating, I walked in as if I owned the space, because I did, in that moment. Nora watched from the edge, her nod small, powerful. I sat near the front, then stood and walked toward the exit, shoes clicking on polished tile. No dramatics, just a woman refusing to shrink. The car door closed softly behind me, but the message had already broken the room. I woke up surprisingly calm. The morning light came through the hotel room window and landed across the hardwood floor. I brewed my favorite dark roast coffee, listening to its warmth fill the kitchen. Curtains open, the air smelled like rain about to come. On the counter, a note from Nora. "You held your head high, proud of you." For a moment, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe the truth had cut through. But then my phone lit up with missed calls, messages flooding in. My name was trending. Social media was alive with whispers, screenshots, accusations crafted by strangers. They claimed I'd texted Daniel, begging him back. the kind of message I would never send. An article called it Jealous Ex Ruins Sister's Day. One post said, "Desperate much?" I scrolled through it all, stomach in my throat. The messages looked like mine. Same colloquial mistakes, same timestamps. Someone had learned me too well. At the office, I walked in holding my bag close. The receptionist's eyes flicked my way. My boss asked me to step into his office. He showed me a forwarded email, the screenshots, anonymous sources. His voice stayed steady. This could affect clients. I defended myself. I said it was fake, but there were no proof yet, only opinions. After a long pause, he said, "Take a personal leave. Not suspension, just a leave, a gentle push." I nodded, swallowed, said I understood. Inside, pieces of me cracked. Back home, I kept digging. Online accounts traced back, one traced to Lacey, Emily's friend who once helped with social media campaigns. I remembered their 1,000 likes posts, the subtle mimics of my style in stories, in captions. I recorded every clue, time-stamped, documented. I sent evidence to Nora and to Celine, my lawyer friend. Celine said, "This isn't just gossip anymore. It's defamation." My blood ran cold. That evening, I walked down to the lake near my apartment, the place where Daniel once joked about building a life. I sat by the water, cold wind tugging at my hair. I let grief wash over me, letting shame and anger mix until I could taste clarity. "Let them say what they want," I whispered, "but I will say what's true, on my time." I thought of clients who trusted me, of past work I executed alone. I'd been built by integrity. That version of me was gone. I drove home as dusk settled. Lights flickered in windows. I felt brittle, but alive. War had been declared, yes, but this time I wouldn't be incidental. I locked the door behind me, gathered my laptop, evidence file, and journal. I lay down, mind racing with headlines I didn't create, narratives I'd never invited. I closed my eyes. I'm still here. I still speak. I will be heard. I slipped away from makeup touch-ups into the florist's prep room behind the venue. The scent of fresh petals and damp earth filled the air. Aunt Elise stood there, hands trembling, holding a stack of papers bound in brown twine. "I couldn't stay silent any longer," she said. I took the bundle, my palms slick with sweat. Inside were email exchanges, old contracts, signatures, proof Dad had set aside profits for me that Gwen either destroyed or redirected. My heart raced, not with fear, but with a white-hot rush of injustice. The weight of every erased version of me pressed against my ribs. Aunt Elise stepped back. I pressed the papers to my chest. The truth felt heavy. Later, string lights began to glow in the garden patio as early evening settled. Gwen appeared in her gown, radiant under the fading sky. Aunt Elise at my side, I approached her without hesitation. I held up the documents. "Do you remember this email chain?" My voice cut through the hush. Her face paled. The mask she wore cracked. Gwen's voice trembled. "These are drafts, old negotiations. Nothing finalized." I responded, "You finalized them without me. You erased me." Caterers paused mid-task. Staff glanced. Someone whispered, "What's going on?" I stood there watching the collapse of a lie. At the reception entrance, Daniel emerged, confusion etched on his face, guests turning to see what I held. Cameras clicked, whispers spread. Gwen attempted calm, leaning toward Emily, voice low, but I heard the tremor. I spoke louder than before. "You built your reputation on my foundation." I saw a friend of mine step forward, eyebrows raised, voice soft. "She should have credited you." Blake, a family friend, raised his glass. To honesty, finally. The room froze. Gwen's face flushed. She had nothing to say. The silence around her screamed more than any accusation. I stood at the threshold, seeing Gwen retreat inside, guests still murmuring. My pulse pounded. My breathing sharp. And yet, an odd calm washed over me. I replayed Aunt Elise's words in my head, the betrayals, the erasures, every slight that had been dismissed. I remembered Maya Angelou's quote, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." Suddenly, speaking wasn't enough. I understood I had to live this truth. I thought about stepping back in, making a show of vindication, letting them see every piece of evidence. But I resisted. I folded the documents, slipped the ring, tucked the journal into my clutch. I moved through the side door, quietly, confidently. I wasn't running. I was walking away with dignity. Tomorrow, I decided, I'll speak with a lawyer. I'll release everything. But tonight, I gathered my strength, letting their reactions do the speaking. Daniel messaged me somewhat early that morning. Can we talk? Just the two of us? Something in his tone betrayed guilt. I agreed. We met at our old local coffee shop, one with soft music and window lights spilling onto wood tables. He arrived late, eyes unsettled, stirring his coffee with a trembling spoon. He apologized. I didn't know how far things had gone, he said. He confessed that Gwen manipulated him, pulled strings behind scenes, twisted truth. He paused and added, I just wanted peace. I looked at him and said, peace for you has always meant silence for me. He stared into his cup. Regret weighed in his voice. But when I asked him to stand with me, to speak truth publicly, he said he couldn't risk his reputation. His fear made cutting him off easier. I thanked him for his apology and for proving he was no longer my concern. That evening, Mother called, asked if she could drop something off. I sat by my apartment window, watching dusk settle. When she arrived, she handed me a sealed envelope. She said nothing else and left. My hands shook as I opened it. It was a letter she wrote long ago but never sent, a defense of me after the breakup, apologies for siding with Emily. She described hearing my sobs behind a closed bedroom door. She saw me collapse quietly, she said, but did nothing. The words, I thought you'd heal better if we ignored it. I was wrong. Fury and tenderness collided inside me. I didn't call her back. I folded the letter into my journal, pressing it against memories I still carried. Word of last night's exposé with Gwen reached far beyond the venue. Group chats buzzed. Mutual friends posted cryptic messages. One wedding guest uploaded a TikTok, the real bride being the sister. Gwen attempted to post her own wedding recap, images, soft focus, glowing smiles, but comments pushed back, shade, questions. Some asked, who owns these contracts anyways? Some tagged me, others let their silence do the heavy lifting. Nora's text came. You didn't have to speak, the truth is loud enough. I didn't smile full, but inside, something gentle stirred. A cautious hope. Blake called me later. He'd helped with projects years ago. If you're ready to step out of their shadow, I have a new project, he said. Proposal files over email, insight requests. It wasn't about pity, it was respect. Nora showed up with wine and evidence folder. We sat in my living room, soft lamplight, sorting through photos, contracts, messages. We laughed between pain, shared strategies. For a brief moment, the future felt possible, not a prison made of betrayals. Late at night, I reviewed every document, letter, every timestamp. With Celine's help, I drafted a statement, not for clout, but to reclaim control of my narrative. I chose a platform that respects nuance. Blog post, paired with a personal video. I typed, my story has been told without me for too long. Here's what you missed. I hit schedule for tomorrow at 9. The weight in my chest lightened slightly. Doing this on my terms felt like owning breath. I lay down, surrounded by whispers of wind beyond my window. I closed my eyes and felt the what if no longer be a question. The reckoning was coming. A week after the blog and video went viral, I wake up to my phone vibrating relentlessly. Sunlight sneaks into the apartment, touches bare walls and bright windows. I sit up, heart pounding at the weight of it all. Thousands of shares, hundreds of messages. Strangers saying thank you. Distant relatives typing, finally someone said it. Old classmates sending support. Someone wrote, you spoke the words I never dared to say. Local news wants a quote. A podcast invites me on. I don't feel famous. I feel seen, heard. Not as someone's daughter or sister or ex, but as someone reclaiming her voice. I sip coffee, hands steady. This isn't revenge. This is reclamation. Later, a plain envelope arrives, no return address. Just my name. My breath tightens when I open it. Inside, a handwritten note from Gwen. I've hated how effortless you made strength look. No apology, just envy. She writes she always believed I was already ahead, something to beat. Not to destroy me, but to measure herself. I read it twice. No rage this time, just a strange, quiet understanding. I place Gwen's note beside the letter from my mother. Two voices that hurt me once, now powerless. I move into a new apartment closer to Nora, closer to the studio where I sketch and plan. The walls are bare, the windows big. Light is generous here. I lay out my workspace, mood boards, sketches, project ideas. Nora shows up with plants. You always bloomed where you weren't meant to survive, she tells me, pressing a pot of green into my hand. I draw a breath. I remember that girl who cried alone, who held broken dreams like splinters. She is still in me, but I am not her anymore. That evening, I write a letter, not to Gwen or Daniel or Mom, to myself, the younger me who thought love meant being chosen last, waiting in shadows. You did not imagine your pain. You weren't too much. You were just in the wrong room. I fold the paper, tape it inside my closet door. Every morning now when I pick out my clothes, I see that letter. I dress for myself. I walk out into the world knowing who I fought for. One sunny afternoon, I walk through the park where Daniel once proposed. The swing set where he held me. I don't cry. I smile. The past has shape now. I can walk around it, not through it. I notice a young woman on a bench, tears glimmering under her lashes, phone clutched tight. I sit beside her, hand on hers. She whispers, "It's like no one sees me." I say, "I do." Because once, no one saw me either. Light wind tosses leaves. I breathe in, breathe out. The mirror is gentler now. I move forward, not perfect, not healed, but free.